All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a single, really dramatic question that seems to be reshaping global power. And honestly, it's a question a lot of people thought they would never have to seriously ask. Is America actually losing its grip on the Middle East?
You know, for decades, American dominance in the region was just a given. It was this unshakable fact of international politics. But a recent, incredibly rapid escalation between the US and Iran is challenging, well, everything we thought we knew. And it suggests America's power isn't just being tested, it might actually be collapsing.
So the whole story of this potential collapse, it really starts with just one single shocking number: 7.
Yeah, you heard that right. 7. 7 high-tech U.S. military aircraft all confirmed lost to Iran in just 36 days. I mean, to put that in perspective, this is the single biggest loss for the U.S. Air Force since the 1991 Gulf War. This number, it's the key to understanding the massive shift that's happening right now. So, how on earth did we get here? I mean, to a point where America's legendary air superiority is even being questioned? Well, to understand that, we've got to rewind to how this all kicked off, with a really dramatic and very, very public ultimatum.
Okay, so the pressure campaign was incredibly fast and aggressive. First, there was a 10-day warning. Either Iran makes a deal or they face the consequences. But that window, it just slammed shut, shrinking down to a final, nail-biting 48-hour ultimatum.
And the language being used was just so direct, almost like something out of a movie. It was signaling that massive military action wasn't just a possibility anymore, it was an imminent reality. There was absolutely no room for misinterpretation here.
And here's the crucial part. This threat went way beyond just military installations. The promise was to cripple the very infrastructure that supports civilian life. We're talking about the systems that provide water, electricity, and transportation for millions of ordinary people. But the response to this incredible threat was not at all what the United States expected. Instead of Iran folding, the conflict just spiraled into what's now being called the costliest aerial campaign in decades.
Okay, so let's really break down these losses because they're staggering. We're talking 4 F-15E Strike Eagles. Each one is like a $100 million beast. Then you've got one legendary A-10 Warthog. And on top of that, 2 absolutely critical support aircraft, a refueling plane, and an AWACS, which is basically a flying command center. Believe me, these are not minor assets we're talking about.
And, beyond the absolutely staggering financial cost of all this equipment, there's a real human cost. Right now, a massive search and rescue operation is underway for a missing U.S. co-pilot, and it's happening in this intensely difficult, rugged, mountainous terrain. It's just a stark reminder of the actual people at the heart of all this.
So this is the question that's sending like strategic shockwaves through military headquarters all over the globe. How? How did a regional power manage to so effectively challenge America's undisputed, decades-long control of the skies? To really get a handle on what's happening, we have to look past the jets and the missiles and look at the dueling stories that each side is telling. Because this isn't just a military conflict anymore. It's become a war of narratives.
And this really shows you the massive gap in how this is being framed. So from the U.S. perspective, this whole thing is a calculated pressure campaign, right? It's designed to force Iran to the negotiating table. But if you look at it from Iran's point of view, these attacks on civilian targets, that's not a sign of strength. To them, it's a sign of a moral and military collapse.
So the core of Iran's narrative is basically this. Yeah, you can destroy our bridges and buildings, but that's all temporary. We can rebuild. But what will never recover, they say, is America's standing in the world. They're betting that they can absorb the physical damage and, in the end, win the much more important war of perception.
All right, so how does this all end? Let's take a look at the potential really high-stakes endgame that's now on the table.
Because of these completely unexpected losses and Iran's, frankly, incredible resilience, the calculus has changed. A very, very difficult conversation is now happening behind closed doors. The focus has totally shifted from how do we win this to how do we find a viable way out of this before the whole situation just deteriorates into a regional catastrophe.
And one potential solution has actually emerged. It's a simple but pretty profound agreement that people are calling the Never for Never Pact. The terms are super straightforward. The U.S. vows to never attack Iran again. In return, Iran vows to never attack U.S. bases. And as part of the whole deal, all sanctions get lifted.
But this pact, it's a classic catch-22. On the one hand, yeah, it's a clear off-ramp.
It's a way for the U.S. to secure its forces and stop the bleeding. But on the other hand, accepting a deal like this, especially after taking such a bloody nose, well, the rest of the world could easily see that as America admitting it's been fought to a standstill.
And that leaves us with the critical question, one that could genuinely define the next decade of geopolitics. Is a deal like this a pragmatic masterstroke, a smart way to avoid a much wider war? Or is this the final signature on a declaration of strategic decline? Is this the moment America's unchallengeable status in the Middle East officially and finally comes to an end? The answer, whatever it is going to change the world.